Igor Stravinsky, 1882–1971. Stravinsky was a legendary figure even before his death. His once controversial works became masterpieces. He was a restless innovator who influenced three generations of composers and also inspired many painters, writers, and choreographers. He was born in a small town near St. Petersburg in Russia. His father was a leading singer at St. Petersburg's opera. His parents wanted him to study law, which he started studying but soon abandoned it and focused on music. At age 21, he became a private student of Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. In 1909, Stravinsky's life took a sudden turn when he met a great impresario, Sergei Diaghilev, from Paris, who commissioned Stravinsky to orchestrate piano pieces by Chopin as ballet music for his first season with the Russian ballet in 1909. The huge success of the Firebird established Stravinsky as a leading young composer. His second ballet, Petrushka, was performed a year later. His incisive rhythms, witty musical satire, and brilliant orchestral colors delighted sophisticated Parisians. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 forced Stravinsky to seek refuge in neutral Switzerland. In 1918, he moved back to Paris, where he remained until the onset of World War II. Stravinsky then became an international figure, constantly touring Europe and the United States, where he finally settled. Unlike his contemporaries Schoenberg and Bartók, Stravinsky got well-paying commissions and was an astute businessman. He worked every day for 8 hours. Stravinsky had an enormous influence on 20th century music. His innovations in rhythm, harmony, and tone color inspired musicians throughout the world. His extensive output includes music of almost every kind, both voice and instruments. He composed 13 ballet scores. His compositional style changed dramatically. At the early stage of his career, his music was influenced by Russian folklore and folk tunes. During World War I, Stravinsky abandoned the large orchestra and wrote for small chamber groups with unconventional instruments. He used rhythms of ragtime and popular dances like tango. From about 1920 to 1951, he gradually turned away from Russian folklore and drew inspiration from 18th century music. Some of his works were inspired by the Baroque composer Pergolesi. Others were based on subjects from antiquity or inspired by sacred texts. All his music has an unmistakable Stravinsky sound. His tone colors tend to be dry and clear, while his beat is strong and regular. His music frequently changes meter, ostinatos or repeated rhythms, and melodic patterns unify sections. Phrases have highly irregular structures. Stravinsky believed that tradition is a living force that animates and informs the present. Particularly in Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, we can see the fascination of primitive or pre-literate culture. This feeling was shared by many 20th century composers. And now this is important statement. Primitivism, the deliberate evocation of primitive power through insistent rhythms and percussive sounds. Stravinsky's music is an example of primitivism. And now let's listen to Rite of Spring, and please read the story. And also let's listen to the Symphony of Psalms, which is an example of the use of tonality, fugue, and deliberate evocation of the past.